So, dealing with this same Anthony character, aside from him, messing with me on the whole video game situation, he started getting disrespectful. Um, he started putting his hands on me. He started like farting in my face, like just doing real disrespectful stuff, farting in my food. Just he was just flat out disrespectful. Like, you know what I mean? He would never leave me alone. So then it got to a point where um, things got pretty bad, and I guess he came up with this like little gang or whatever, and he was asking me if I wanted to be a part of it, and I told him no. And so what he did was he convinced my sister and his little brother to jump me, and they were all hitting me all at once. Now I made it clear that my answer was no. I didn't want to be a part of the gang, but he jumped me anyway. So they're hitting me, they're punching me, however they're attacking me. That's how they decide to do it. So I start swinging because at this point, after all the bullying, no one's standing up for me. I snap and I just start swinging and punching whatever or whoever. So next thing you know, he falls on the ground. I don't know why. Like I didn't know what happened, but he falls on the ground and he gets back up and he looks at me and he's like, like, you punched me. And I was like, well, I didn't really mean to, but I told y'all, like, don't put y'all hands on me. And I told you I didn't want to be a part of your little crew, you know. And he was like, well, so from that moment on, when I punched him in the face, um, yeah, he kept checking to see if he was like, I guess missing any teeth or if it was like, if he was, bleeding or anything, but he was good. But I guess according to him, I punched him hard enough to where from that moment on, he left me alone. He returned the remote back. He stopped trying to control what I watched. And when he got home, it was just like, whatever. He just left me alone. So I guess I handled that on my own. But imagine if I had not punched him in the face, if I had just listened to what Selket said and just continued to go on about my business, letting him act like that and not ever putting my hands on him. Imagine, how far he would have gone in the bullying, because him jumping me into a gang was bad enough. Imagine how much further he would have gone if I hadn't stood my ground and punched him in the face. And I didn't even mean to. Like, I was just swinging so that they could stop hitting me, because they were all hitting me and they were hitting me pretty hard. Vermain would do this thing where he would punch me as hard as he could and then run off because he knew that if I turned around and I caught him, I would beat the fuck out of him. My sister wasn't hitting me super hard, and then Anthony, I don't remember, because with him it was like if I didn't have to address him, if I didn't have to acknowledge his presence, he didn't exist in my world, to be honest, because he brought nothing but negativity. But when I punched him in the face, I think that, sent that message. But like I said, if I had listened to Cellcat, imagine how much worse things would have gotten. So there's another memory when I was 12 years old. This is when we move out of my mom's friend's house and we move to Aldine, Texas. And, you know, the school system in Texas is much different, but nonetheless, kids will be kids, right? So I'm getting bullied at this new school that I'm going to in Texas. And I'm coming home and I'm telling my mom about it. I'm telling my mom or Selket about, what's going on. And she doesn't say anything. She just sits there like usual, like any other time I've ever reported being bullied or harassed or anything like that. She's not done a thing. She just sits there and doesn't say anything, no empathy, no nothing, just like as if the bullying doesn't even exist. So, of course, I like most things, I have to handle it on my own. If it's not one of those situations where it has to be adult authorized, I have to handle it on my own. And I've realized this at this point. So when I'm getting bullied, I tell the teachers. The teachers dismiss what's going on and they ignore it and they continue to move on while I'm still continuously getting bullied. And now it gets to the point where I'm being bullied at this new school so badly to where everybody can see that I'm being bullied. And the audience is pretty much given a choice on whether or not they're going to do the right thing and stand up for me or, join the bully. 90% of the class participated, well, not necessarily participated, but they either instigated or laughed or whatever. And then there's that very few that either, sat there and didn't say anything or, continued to be kind to me and show support, you know, but at a distance. So the bullying continues, and then it gets to a point where one of the students, um, and she's somebody that, if I can be entirely honest, she didn't really like me very much, but I guess at some point she stepped in because, the bullies at this school, they didn't, put their hands on me, but, they were very vocal about, chastising me. And so I would it got to the point where I had my mind made up that, Selket wasn't going to do anything to defend me. So basically, I had my mind made up that if any of them put their hands on me, all bets were off. Now it's one thing if they just talk shit, make fun of me, whatever. Like I can ignore that. But if any of them put their hands on me, it's a wrap. So that's how I went about my days there. And the bullying would happen pretty much every day for the first 3 months that I was going to that school. It was like nonstop bullying every day, every class period. That was just how it was. And so I ignored it. I continued to move on about my business. And um, one day in particular, I'm getting bullied by these set of girls, and one of the classmates that doesn't really like me all too much, but I guess maybe she just decided that she got tired of watching them making fun of me and harassing me, and I'm handling it cool. I'm just ignoring them, and at this point I've pretty much like become desensitized to it, and I've pretty much learned to tone them out, block out their voices, block out what they're saying, because at this point it's, I don't even care anymore, you know. So I ignore them. And then next thing you know, the classmate is like, hey, can y'all leave her alone? Like, damn, y'all do this every day. Like, can y'all just leave her alone? Like, y'all getting on my nerves. And that's literally what she said. She was like, y'all are getting on my damn nerves. Like, y'all need to leave her alone. And she was actually cool with the group of girls. That was the ironic part about it, is that she was actually friends with the group of girls that were bullying me. She never participated in the bullying though. You know what I mean? She never participated, but she was friends with them. And I guess one day she just got fed up of always watching them, like, making fun of me and giving me a hard time, especially if I was peaceful and minding my own business and I didn't instigate, or I didn't even like defend myself, because it was like, they had already, I had before, like, I was like, stop teasing me, leave me alone. And when I said that, the teasing and the ridicule, it got worse. So I realized that saying anything or defending myself was only going to make them tease me even more. So I just ignored them, because I had already gone to Selket about it, my mom, and then I've already gone to the teachers, and they've all ignored it. They all ignored it. And so when another student got involved and was like, "Can y'all shut up?" And they was like, "Well, girl, we ain't got no problem with you. We just," and she was like, "Honestly, if y'all keep messing with her, like, you gonna have a problem with me. Like, then I'm gonna get involved and it's gonna be a fight. Like, because I guess she had just gotten tired of watching them always doing that. Like, she just got tired of it, and she was willing to, put hands on them, which was surprising because like she and I didn't really care much for each other, but she just got tired of watching that, so she stepped in. I was surprised because I mean, it wasn't like I had gone to anybody else for help. I just moved on. And then she was like, if y'all continue to mess with her, I'm gonna put hands on you. Then we gonna be fighting. And then that was when the teachers started to take it seriously. It was like, okay, the bullying needs to stop. So all of the people who all the girls who were bullying me pretty much were transferred out of the class. And, some of them moved to another school. Some of them, were transferred to different classes or different teachers. And that was just what it was. So my mother had nothing to do with that. It was another student who stood up for me and decided to, get involved. And then the teachers finally took that situation seriously. Um, let's see. The next situation, um, this is I'm gonna have to backtrack because this next situation involving the bullying, this happened back in Wisconsin, but I forgot to mention this situation because this bullying incident was actually really, really bad, and things actually got very, very physical. But the reason why I keep talking about these stories is because I want the audience to understand how emotionally unavailable and negligent, my mother was. So this incident started off with my sister getting bullied by one kid named Derek. He would always bully my sister. He would always give her a hard time. And, she stood up for herself. But when he talked shit, she ignored him. So then it got to a point where he started putting his hands on her. But I saw her stand up for herself and whoop his ass. So I was about to step in, but she stood up for herself and whooped his ass. So I didn't even need to get involved. But then it got to the point where he kept like putting his hands on her. He kept putting his hands on her, kept coming at her. And because he couldn't take her on by himself, he got his cousin involved. And they both started jumping her. So when I seen it, I went over there and I helped her. I helped my sister because, they were coming at her like super duper heavy and they jumped her. So I was like, okay, I need to get involved. So I started getting involved, and me and my sister are whooping their ass. So then another one of his cousins steps in. Now at this point, me and my sister, we had two god sisters and one god brother. When they saw that that me and my sister were fighting three boys, they stepped in, and it became like a big old brawl. And it got to the point where one of the neighbors had called the police because my mother was clearly, so Ket was clearly not going to respond to the issue at hand, which was me and my sister getting bullied, whether it was by boys, whether it was by girls, whether it was by a group of people. It was clear that Selket was not going to be responsible enough to defend her own daughters. So, anyway, so the police get involved. And basically, the boy Derek was forced to move out of the neighborhood because he, I guess maybe somebody complained about him before, but the way he viciously attacked my sister and had been doing that consistently and then started bullying me, at some point he was forced to, he was evicted. But he started off with my sister, and I had her back, and my god brothers, my god sisters jumped in, and that situation was squashed. He left her alone, but then he started bullying me. Now this is before he was forced to leave the neighborhood, but he started bullying me. Now for some odd reason, when he started bullying me, no one had my back. I don't know why. Like, I don't know why when it came down to certain situations where I got picked on, nobody said anything. Somehow, coincidentally, nobody knew anything, and I was always on my own. I didn't understand why. But when my sister got bullied, it seemed like everybody was willing to jump. When people saw me defend my sister, then everybody else jumped in. But when I was getting bullied, my sister didn't defend me, and neither did anyone else. Most of the time, if someone did defend me, it was someone that was either a rival of mine or someone that didn't really like me very much, which was very ironic, right? It seems strange because everybody was cool with me. I was the popular one, but yet when it came down to when I needed people the most, no one was ever there except for maybe one or two people that I didn't even like. Ironic, huh? So anyway, he started bullying me, and he would get his cousin involved, and they would just talk shit. They would follow me around and talk shit, but I would just ignore it. And then one time it got to the point where him and his cousin both tried to kiss me. And this was like, low key, like sexual harassment. Even though we were kids, I didn't want their attention. You know what I mean? It was unwanted attention. And they both tried to kiss me. And I pushed Derek off of me because he was trying to kiss me. I didn't want him to. So then his cousin, like, because his cousin wasn't as aggressive, but his cousin was like the instigator. So when Derek tried to kiss me, I pushed him, and then his cousin stepped in and pushed me on the ground. Now when he pushed me hard as hell, and I fell to the ground, and then they both started laughing at me. So then I got up and I pushed his cousin, which his cousin name was Marquise. I pushed him hard enough to where he fell on a, like, it was like a but like in the bushes, but one of the branches like kind of went in his nose, and like one of the adults kind of had to pull the branch out of his nose, and his nose was like bleeding, like almost as if I had punched him in the nose or something, but I didn't. I just pushed him, and I guess I pushed him too hard, and he fell into the bushes, and one of the branches like scratched the inside of his nose. And because he was bleeding so much, the adult that did help him get the branch out of his nose snapped on me. She was like, "Look what you did to his nose. Look what you did to his face." And I mean, it was an accident. I didn't mean to hurt him like that. Like, honestly and truthfully, I didn't. But those two had been bullying me, for so long. And they were both like, like it was getting to a point where it was sexual harassment. And they felt a little bit too comfortable putting their hands on me, not only in a physically abusive way, but in a sexual harassment type of way. It was unwanted attention to begin with. And so I tried to explain to her that I was just defending myself. I didn't mean to hurt him, but she wasn't listening. And so it got to, an altercation where the principal got involved because it happened, well, technically during school hours, because we were at the bus stop waiting for the bus, so the school had to get involved. But the principal pretty much asked what happened, and I explained, and the boys actually decided to be honest and admit that, yeah, I was telling the truth, and they both got in trouble. They both got write ups, and I was actually, for once in my life, given a pass, because it was actually confirmed that it was sexual harassment. So anyway, but did my mother do anything to help me? No, I had to fight my way out of it on my own. And this is just one of the very many examples of, Selket leaving me and my sister out to dry, and me having my sister's back when she needed it the most, but my sister was nowhere to be found when it came down to me needing help. And a lot of times it was just me by myself and a gang of people ganging up on me. You know what I mean? It wasn't just one. With my sister, it was just one dude. With me, it was like five, six other people at once, and nobody there to defend me, not even my sister. So it seemed like I came to my sister's aid, but she wasn't ever there for me, and my mother wasn't shit at all. So anyway, moving forward, this is I want to fast forward to perhaps maybe high school. This was, I want to say, sophomore year, when I was about 16 years old in high school. Um, I don't remember all the details of my situation, but all I remember is that I was sexually assaulted by a male classmate. I don't remember his name. Um, I'm not a, like, I don't want to just like say a name because I don't remember, like, it was some, like, because it was traumatic. But I think his name was Keenan Thompson. But in 10th grade, he assaulted me. He sexually assaulted me. I don't know why. If I can just like piece together the memories that I had from that year, um, he and I had a few classes together, and I just remember him being the loudest one in the classroom. But I just distinctly remember, every time a teacher would call my name to answer a question, or I had my hand raised to answer a question, and I started to open my mouth and speak, he would always like overpower me and like overtalk me. Like, say for instance, the teacher would ask a question like, "Oh, what's 2 plus 2?" But say I would like answer, and I would say, "Well, the answer is four." And then right as I was about to say, four, he would jump in and say it before I like. So the teacher would be like, "What's 2 plus 2?" And I'd be like, "Four." He'd be like, "4." But he would do it every single time. You know, he would do it every single time I answered any question. Like, so whatever class period I had with him, he would do that every time. Every time he would do that. And it was annoying. It was really, really annoying. But he would do it every time with me specifically. He wouldn't do that with other people. He just did that with me specifically, and I didn't know why he would always do that. I don't know. I don't know why he would always do that. I'm telling you, I don't. I like before I was 16, I never knew who he was before. I never knew like of him. I think he might have even been like a transfer student. Like he wasn't there like freshman year, but he was a new student sophomore year. You know what I mean? Like I never knew him before, or I didn't remember him or recall knowing him before I was 16. So when he popped up out of nowhere and he just started like overpowering me and over talking me, I didn't know why he was doing it. Like from my perspective, I didn't know why he was doing that. I always wondered that, why he was always over talking me. And he did that other years of high school. Like I've had classes with him, junior year and senior year, and he did the same thing. He always did that when the teacher called on me to answer a question. I never understood why he did that. But yeah, so anyway, he would always overpower me, overtalk me, and it got to the point where the teacher the teacher that I had classes with started picking up on him doing that, and they started telling him to stop. Like at first they were nice about it. They were like, "Hey, shh, it's not your turn to speak." And then it got to the point where he kept doing it and kept doing it. So then the teacher would be like, "Okay, hush. You need to hush." And then it got to the point where the teacher was like, "Hey, you need to be quiet." And it was like the teacher raised their voice, and all the teachers that we shared class periods with responded the exact same way. So it was a pattern. Like his behavior towards me, it was a pattern that all the teachers that we shared noticed. A pattern of him doing that over and over and over again. Sophomore year, junior year, senior year, him doing that. And the teacher would start off with being patient and calm because they understood that he was passionate about his studies. But him overpowering me all the time was starting to piss my teachers off. I mean, I was just like, I wasn't upset. I mean, it was annoying, but I was kind of wondering like, why does he always do that? I didn't really necessarily have a personal problem with him, but I did often wonder like why did he do that? I didn't understand. I didn't. But anyway, so it got to the point where my teacher started getting loud with him and being like, basically border. They didn't actually say shut up, but they were like, be quiet. And then it got to the point where he started getting kicked out of the classroom and he had to sit outside because he kept overpowering me when it came down to like a teacher would ask me. And I don't know why teachers had a tendency to pick me out of all the students and ask me a question to answer. I don't know why I got picked a lot. I don't, but it was just I never really was trying to get picked or whatever. I was just sitting there learning like everybody else. I didn't really raise my hand too often. Um, Sometimes I would raise my hand just to avoid getting picked by the teacher to answer for me to answer a question. So that was my experience. But He would always interject. Every time a teacher called on me, or every time I answered a question, whether it was I raised my hand or not, he would always interrupt. So I'm sure anybody looking at from the outside in would start to notice, like, damn, that's actually really annoying, you know. And so the teachers did start to get annoyed and kick him out. Sometimes he'd have to sit outside the whole class period because of his behavior towards me. And so sophomore year, I remember, I started putting on weight. No matter what I did, no matter how much tennis I played, no matter how healthy I ate, I was putting on weight, and I didn't know why. Now, come to find out, I was being human trafficked, sex trafficked specifically in this situation, would explain why I was putting on weight. But I was sex trafficked, and Keenan time. So I'm putting on weight, and I've noticed that my clothes are getting like smaller and smaller, and I'm outgrowing my clothes. Now I thought at the time, because I didn't know that I was being sex trafficked, I just thought that maybe I was going through puberty, maybe I was I was hitting a growth spurt, and that was just what I thought, that was what it was. I didn't know, like, I didn't know that I was being sex trafficked. So I just thought, maybe I'm just putting on a little weight. Maybe it's just time for me to go, you know, get a new set of clothes. Because if I can be entirely honest, my entire wardrobe was filled with clothes I had since I was in middle school. So I'm sure some of y'all can understand that. Well, hell yeah, of course you outgrew your clothes. You had them damn clothes since how long? Sixth grade? Yep. I had those clothes since I was sixth grade, but I managed to keep myself in shape. Even when I went through puberty and I started getting hips and curves and, all that, I still maintained my shape. But for some odd reason, I was just putting on weight, putting on weight, putting on weight, and I didn't understand why. But like I said, I just thought maybe my metabolism is not really working with me the way it used to. That's what I immediately assumed. And for a while, that was what I thought. But I started noticing that I was being made fun of by my classmates for putting on weight, more specifically for outgrowing my clothes. So it was like my thighs and my abdominal region that was putting on weight, and I didn't understand why. I find out damn near 10 years later that I was pregnant, but I didn't know. So, this conversation got a little dark. It just took a dark twist, but this is my story, and I'm telling it so that people understand the level of cruelty that children face being human trafficked. Imagine being well, at least what I thought I was a virgin. And 16 years old, I'm thinking I'm a virgin, and I'm thinking, you know, it's no possible way I could be pregnant. I didn't even think of that as an option because I didn't entertain boys. I wasn't having sex, at least not consensually and not by memory. You see? So I'm putting on weight, and I noticed one of my classmates named David. He was I think he was on the swim team, and he was very athletic, but he had a reputation around the school for being a bit aggressive with the women that he dated. Like, he was like very, like, I guess what they call physically aggressive, and there was even some rumors that went around saying that he just got all out abusive, physically abusive. He dated one of my friends that I knew since middle school, and let's just say that when she started dating him, she started becoming very distant towards me, and I didn't know why. I just assumed that she and I were growing apart. I didn't know that it was possible that it could be because she was dating some guy that wasn't very nice to her. So anyway, there was rumors around that he was very physically abusive, and so I mean, I'm not the type of person that just goes along with he say she say. I prefer to not necessarily find out on my own, but if the truth if there's truth in what people say, I prefer to let that surface than just to immediately jump to conclusions. I'm not that type of person that just go, I'll take heed to the warning, but I'm not going to just, assume the worst about somebody until I have proof on my own. Because I know that if somebody's talking trash about me, I'm not going to want other people to just believe the worst about me. I would rather people do their investigation. And so I did, because, he was dating my friend. He was dating one of my best friends from middle school. So, of course, I'm going to do my investigation. So I do. And I find out that actually, the rumors that, so then, so I do my research on him. And I actually ended up finding out that the rumors that were being said about him were true. But, I don't treat him badly, but I don't ever try to be, at that time, I never tried to be his friend either. Um, Anytime he tried to be cool with me or anything, I just cut the conversation short. I mean, I didn't like be rude to him because I didn't want him to suspect that I knew, but I just, kind of kept it short with him. And I remember one particular time, he was making fun of me to one of his friends, and then he asked me if I was pregnant. Now, when he asked me that, I thought he was being mean, which he was. Let's not get it twisted. He was being mean, but I thought he was just saying that to make me feel insecure about my weight. That's why I thought he asked. So I didn't answer him, and I at that point decided that I was gonna be rude to him, because, like I said, so many other girls had talked about him being abusive, and he, was abusive towards my best friend. And when he asked me that question, that was, pretty much the boiling point for me. So I no longer decided to be polite to him. And polite is a bit of a stretch when I say that, but I no longer decided to engage in any conversation. I was willing to ignore him when he asked me a question. So I just kind of noticed that, he asked me that question like, I think two more times on, different occasions. And like I said, I remember I specifically ignored him. But that was a red flag. Not just from him, but SoCat. But these are red flags that I can't necessarily address or do anything about because I'm dependent solely on my abusive mother. And then I'm being forced to go to a school that, quite frankly, I never even wanted to go to in the first place. But due to zoning and districting, I was forced to go there based off of where I lived. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, so yeah, while I was in high school, more specifically junior year of high school, I'm putting on weight, pregnant weight. And I was unaware of this at the time because I was just a child, but come to find out I was pregnant. And I had no idea I was pregnant. And there were great lengths that were done in the background to not only keep me unaware of the fact that I was pregnant, but to enforce me having a child against my free will, all without my knowing. Now, how was this pulled off? I don't know. But I was pregnant and I had a child while I was in high school and I didn't even know. And I was sexually assaulted and made fun of. The aftermath of me having a baby and being sexually assaulted was clearly a joke to my peers. And it even got to the point where my mother would ask me several times, "Are you pregnant?" And I thought she was asking to be mean. I really did, because how was I supposed to know? If I'm being sex trafficked and that's being kept a secret, and then I'm pregnant and I don't even know the warning signs of being pregnant, because, most cases, what people don't know about who have not been pregnant as a teen is that when teenagers are pregnant, there are little to no signs because they're small. Their metabolism is they have a fast metabolism. So therefore, when they get pregnant, they don't put on as much weight as, say, someone who's in their 20s or 30s or, older. Okay, that's one thing. So most teenagers don't even know they're pregnant until they're in their third trimester. And then when they do start putting on weight, it just looks like they're putting on, they're going through puberty, when some of them may actually be pregnant. And then when they have a child, most of them experience little to no pain when they have birth. And when they do have the baby, they slim right back to their normal size because their metabolism is very high, because they're at the peak of their youth. Okay? So this is how a lot of teenagers are able to get away with being pregnant and nobody know. I mean, this is just the fact. And I didn't even know that. You would think that me of all people would know, but I didn't know that I was pregnant. I did not know. So I'm sure if a teenager being pregnant can somehow miss the parents and the peers, imagine how you think I felt when I found out that I had a child at 16 and I didn't even know. Imagine the level of evilness and cruelty behind all that, the planning and the scheming. Somebody had to have known, right? For starters, Keenan Thompson knew. Okay, my mother knew because she kept asking me. Well, first of all, she was the one that human trafficked me. She was the one that sex trafficked me. So of course she knew. She had to have known something. And she may not have known that I got pregnant, but when she found out, somehow she was able to keep it a secret. And she kept and I used to wonder, like, for a long time, why she always used to ask me if I was pregnant. Anytime that I put on a little bit of weight or I outgrew my clothes, she would always ask me if I was pregnant. And I never knew why she was pressing me so hard. And it was getting to the point where it was starting to negatively impact my self esteem. So I was always conscious about my weight, even if I was a really petite figure, or even if I looked really good. A lot of people would compliment me on my body, but I felt so ashamed because my mother would always ask me if I was pregnant. And I'm sure you can only imagine what that would do to a teenage mind. Your mother always asking if you're pregnant when you yourself think that you're not having sex, and she's basically trying to slut shame you. I'm sure any teenage girl can understand how emotionally damaging that is to have a mother that's so cruel on that level. Always asking, because I'm sure teenage girls, they have you know, insecurities about their body. It's natural. I mean, I'm sure men do too, but just speaking for the teenage, woman's experience, we got acne that we got to be worried about, our bodies, our weight, our hair, you know what I'm saying? Our beauty, those are things that we constantly are insecure about, right? And so my mother would always nitpick at me about my weight. She would always say that I was fat. She would always say, are you pregnant? You being a hoe? You out there having sex? And it was like, no, I mean, I did my very best, to maintain my innocence. I didn't entertain boys or girls while I was going to school. My focus was solely on my school so that I could play sports. And that was, so I didn't understand why I was being hounded all the time. Come to find out, I was sexually assaulted by a classmate, and my sister and mother both supported the men who sexually assaulted me while I was being sex trafficked. And my mother and my sister both had a part to play in me being sex trafficked. The both of them are equally as responsible. My sister can get away with not taking accountability up until she became an adult. Even as a child, she knew what was going on with me. And she never defended me, never, she benefited from me being trafficked. And she knew that I was being trafficked, and she knew that I did not know what was going on. And they both screwed me over, and they both made a lot of money off of my, out of my slave labor. And they both intentionally kept it a secret until it blew up in their face. So I'm going to school, I'm going to high school, I'm being sex trafficked. Sophomore year, I get sexually assaulted by a classmate. 11th grade year, I get assaulted by a celebrity, actually. And you would think, what the hell is a celebrity doing at the goddamn high school? I don't know. I don't know. The only answer I can come up with is that the school system that I went to, the high school system that I went to, was basically A human trafficking house disguised as an education institution. The only answer I can come up with is that the high school that I went to, was involved in human trafficking the children inside that institution. That is the only answer I can come up with. I do believe that the Nimitz High School participated in human trafficking children. Yes, I believe that. I could be wrong, and if I am, I apologize in advance. But due to the fact that Chester W. Nimitz is a colonizer, um, the apple wouldn't fall too far from the tree when it comes down to the principals, and the teachers also happen to be white, and all the students are black. And situations like these happen. It's not that surprising. Yes, slavery ended, but colonization never ended, though. So, anyway, 11th grade year. 11th grade year, I had these two so-called friends, and I put extra emphasis on so-called because I really thought that these two people were my friends. But when I found out their views on homosexuality, I it was a red flag. That was a red flag I definitely could say I ignored. For sure. I can definitely say I can hold myself accountable for ignoring those red flags when it was made clear that they were homophobic. So, who am I talking about? I'm talking about one person named Leslie and one person named Jessica. One person named Leslie, one person named Jessica. Those two at the time were, well, Leslie was considered my best friend. She was my best friend at the time, so I thought. And Jessica was a close friend that I had known since freshman year of high school. Now, why am I bringing these two ladies up? Because there was one, I used to, like, when I went to high school, I didn't really talk to too many people, to be honest with you. I just was in the library for the most part. And I would just chill in there. I would do homework, I would study, I would read, I would read mangas and just chill. And the both of them would come to the library to visit me from time to time, and I just assumed that it was because they were my friends and they just wanted to see what was up. If anybody wanted to find me, then they knew to go to the library, at least at the time. So the both of them would come and visit me. Leslie was my best friend, so she would come there and visit me like every other day. That was just how it was at the time. We would kick it, talk, do study, do homework, whatever. Jessica would come there every now and then because we weren't like the best of friends, but we were close enough to where if she came and visited, it wouldn't be that much of a shocker, And I didn't mind, just they were both cool, like at the time, at least so I thought. So, um, I remember they both come up to me, and Leslie's kind of just sitting there and she looks like sad and she almost looks like she feels guilty. I'm not really sure why. I'm really not sure why. And then Jessica comes up to me and she says, "Hey, your birthday's coming up, happy birthday." But she kind of had this sinister vibe, and I didn't really know why. Like, I didn't know what her problem was. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know why they were both coming at, but they were both coming at me a little bit aggressively, like not like forceful, but just like all up in your face. I'm standing right in front of the door. I'm standing in your way type of energy.